She kept her head down when he followed her, stayed polite when he pulled her over, bit her tongue every time he lingered too long or looked at her like she was prey. But the day he humiliated her in front of a crowd, mocked her, soaked her, stripped her of dignity under flickering hallway lights, that was the day the silence broke. That was the day her father came home, and nothing would ever be the same. It happened right in the corridor between third and fourth period. A busy stretch packed with voices and footsteps. Maya Collins was making her way through the crowd, arms wrapped tight around her binder, head down, moving fast like always. Not because she was shy, just focused. 17 years old, already accepted into college, first in line to be valedictorian. No distractions. No drama. Just her books, and a clear plan. But that Wednesday, the air shifted. Officer Travis Long, the school's security officer and self-declared sheriff of Eastbrook High, was posted near the cafeteria doors. Central Georgia, heat pressing through the windows, his thumbs looped in his duty belt like he ran the place. A few students lingered near him, chuckling at some offhand joke. Maya didn't look his way, she never did. But as she passed, he stepped out just enough to block her path. "Watch where you're going, young lady," he said, his voice loud, deliberately sharp.
She paused, confused.
I'm sorry," she asked, eyes wide. Long smirked. Then, with a careless flick of his wrist, he tilted a water bottle toward her. His hand brushed hers. The bottle dropped. Or maybe it didn't. Either way, ice-cold water splashed across the front of her shirt. She gasped. Her binder slipped. Papers scattered across the floor like broken glass. The hallway broke open in laughter. Long's expression didn't change.
"Oops.
Someone's a little clumsy today," he said, mocking steady. Maya stood still, drenched. Her shirt stuck to her skin. Her hair dripped. Her face flushed red-hot. Around her, the noise felt like fire crawling under her skin.
She didn't speak.
Didn't glare. Just crouched, gathered her papers, and walked away. But in her eyes, beneath the sting of shame, was something deeper. Not just embarrassment. It was the quiet burn of confusion and fear. Maya didn't break down in the bathroom. She didn't let a tear fall while swapping out her soaked shirt in the nurse's office. She didn't flinch as she sat alone in that empty classroom during lunch. She held it all in like always. But inside, something cracked. Because this wasn't the first time he'd cornered her. The first time was barely noticeable. She was driving home from her evening shift at the library when he appeared, parked just past the stop sign near the edge of town, headlights off like he was lying in wait. Said she'd rolled the stop. She hadn't. Then came the questions. Not about the car or her license, no. Where was she headed? What was in her bag? Why did she look nervous? She told her mom, but brushed it off like it didn't matter. The second time, he showed up at her work. Didn't order. Didn't speak. Just stood at the front of the store, arms crossed, watching her shelve books with that strange smile that made her skin crawl. There was no reason for it. Maya wasn't loud, wasn't disrespectful. She didn't skip class or challenge teachers. She was the quiet one, the one they all said had a bright future. So why her? Why target her? The answer came slowly. In glances. In whispers. Evan Long. Same grade. Same AP history class. Same last name as the officer. They'd had a heated debate in class 2 months earlier, on race, power, and justice. Maya's argument was sharp, grounded, impossible to dismiss. The class clapped. Evan clenched his jaw. But it didn't stop there. Maya had recently overtaken him for valedictorian. Jalen, the star point guard, had started walking her to class. Evan used to be the favorite, the funny one, the smartest, the golden boy. Now he was just watching from the shadows. And somehow his father, the cop, started showing up everywhere she went. Kindly do us a quick favor. Please hit that like and subscribe button if you are touched by this story. Your support keeps us creating and sharing more powerful stories as this one. Thank you. Now, let's get back to our story. What Maya didn't know was this. Evan had already planted the seed. He told his father that she was mouthy, that she liked to stir the pot, that she was always challenging authority. He didn't just lie, he rewrote history. He left out the facts, twisted the truth, and made himself the one under attack. And Officer Long? He didn't ask questions.
He didn't need to.
He believed his son without blinking. But Maya didn't know any of that. She only knew that things were starting to spiral. By Friday, she couldn't keep pretending. She moved through the hallways like fog. Barely seen, barely there. Her lips stayed shut, her shoulders curled in. And the looks? They were unbearable. Everyone had seen what happened by the lockers. Some laughed. Most looked away. No one said anything, but the silence screamed. She felt it when she walked into class.
The shift.
The pity. The pity was the worst. At lunch, she tucked herself in the farthest corner of the library, pretended to study. Her hands kept trembling. Every time someone passed the window, her heart jumped like it was bracing for something. The librarian asked if she was okay.
She smiled, nodded. Of course she did.
But that afternoon, something finally gave. Mr. Carter, her U.S. government teacher, caught her after class. He was young, mid-30s, the kind of teacher who noticed things most didn't. He'd been there during that debate with Evan. He saw the look in Evan's eyes. He saw how Maya changed afterward. "Maya," he said softly, standing in the doorway, "hold on a second." She froze, her binder tight to her chest like it might protect her. "You sure you're all right?"
She tried.
"I'm fine." He didn't buy it. "I've been teaching long enough to know when a student isn't fine." And that was it. She didn't cry. She didn't fall apart. But her voice cracked. Her shoulders trembled. Mr. Carter didn't step in. He stepped back. No pressure, just space. "I didn't do anything," she whispered. "I know," he said. "I believe you." It was the first time someone had truly said it. "I believe you." No judgment. No rush to fix. No long lectures. Just a simple offer. To talk. Maybe to the principal. Maybe the counselor. Someone higher up, even. But Maya only shook her head. She didn't trust the system anymore. Not after everything. That night, as she stepped through the front door, she saw them, his boots.
Heavy.
Mud still drying on the soles. And she froze. Her father was back. Colonel Samuel Collins. Technically retired, but you wouldn't know it. The way he moved, the way he stood, like the mission was still ongoing. He never announced when he'd come home. He just appeared. And when it mattered most, he was there. He took one look at her face and knew. Something had broken. "What happened?" he asked.
Calm. Steady.
Just like always. Maya stood in the kitchen, her fingers fumbling with the zipper on her backpack. Her mom, Lena, turned from the stove but said nothing. The room went quiet, not tense, just waiting. Then Maya spoke. She told them everything. The traffic stop, the parking lot, the hallway, the bottle, the humiliation. And Evan. She braced herself for her father's reaction. Anger. A raised voice. Maybe a slammed hand on the table. Something loud. But Samuel didn't yell. He didn't say a word. He simply gave one slow nod, walked to his office, shut the door behind him, and didn't come out for the rest of the night. What Maya didn't know yet was that her father wasn't just listening. He was preparing. Colonel Samuel Collins didn't close his eyes that night. While the rest of the house slept, he sat alone behind a closed door, surrounded by folders thick with dust and a laptop only he ever touched. In his lap sat a file he hadn't dared to open in years, labeled FIA. And once it was open, everything changed. He didn't pace. He didn't curse. He operated like he always had, precise, methodical, sharp. The same calm urgency he'd carried through decades of covert missions overseas now narrowed in on one single target. By sunrise, he had Officer Travis Long's entire professional footprint laid out in front of him. Patrol logs, stop-and search data, use of force reports, civilian complaints, all of it. And beneath the official lines and neatly typed headers, he saw a pattern. Most people would have missed it. Samuel didn't. He never did. The numbers told a quiet truth. Long had a record of targeting young black teens. The ones who stood out. The ones who spoke up. The ones who didn't shrink. And as for Evan, He didn't wear a badge, but he wore the same thinking. Cut from the same mold. Different outfit. Same poison. That morning, Samuel joined Maya at the kitchen table. She stared down at her plate, untouched toast going cold. He didn't ask her to eat.
Just one thing.
Do you trust me? She gave a small nod. Good, he said, sliding a sealed envelope across the table. Because it ends today. Later that day, Samuel walked through the front doors of Eastbrook High. No fanfare. No raised voice. Just presence. He wasn't in uniform. He didn't have to be. His posture alone drew attention. His words, measured, steady, carried more gravity than threats ever could. He asked to see the principal, Karen Miller, a woman known for staying neutral, quiet, and out of trouble. But that afternoon, trouble had come to her office. And it wasn't going to leave quietly. She hadn't been expecting him. Not a man who moved like a ticking clock, precise, unreadable, composed. When Samuel Banks walked into her office, Principal Miller could feel the shift in the air. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. He simply opened a folder and began laying out the truth. No speeches. Just evidence. Page after page. Complaint after complaint. A pattern too sharp to ignore. As she flipped through the documents, her expression shifted. Subtle, but telling. Then came his voice, low, measured, unwavering. Would you prefer to handle this inside these walls? Or outside them? She didn't answer. He didn't need her to. The next step was already in motion. Meetings lined up with a civil rights attorney in Atlanta. A seasoned journalist from the Southern Voice Journal already working on a piece. The hallway laughter from days before? It had vanished, replaced by whispers and side eyes. Because now the story was out and spreading. But Samuel wasn't chasing headlines. He wanted justice. And he wasn't done. By Monday, the storm hit, not in the skies, but inside Eastbrook High and the Pine Bluff PD. Before the morning bell rang, Officer Travis Long was called into a meeting with the principal and a district official. He walked in smug. He walked out without his badge. Suspended. Under investigation. And that was only the beginning. By noon, the Tribune headline was live. Top student targeted by school officer. A father's stand. It didn't rely on drama. It didn't have to. The article laid it bare. Dash cam footage, formal complaints, first-hand accounts from former students, even a quote from Mr. Carter. She's one of the most disciplined, respectful students I've ever had. This wasn't disciplinary, it was personal. And now the world was watching. By the time sixth period rolled around, Maya's phone wouldn't stop vibrating. Text after text. Screenshots. Links. The local press had picked up the story, and by evening, Channel 7 aired it. Her face was blurred, but that didn't matter. Everyone at school already knew. The quiet girl. The one who kept to herself. The one who got targeted in front of everyone for no reason. Now, the story had flipped. Evan Long disappeared into silence. His cryptic posts?
Gone.
His crew? Nowhere to be found. Even the basketball captain, the same one who once laughed loudest, looked away when she passed. Maya didn't celebrate. She didn't throw shade or walk with vengeance. She just moved the same way she always had, except this time, her back was straighter. And when she crossed the hallway where it all went down, the water, the mockery, the sting of shame, something in her shifted. It wasn't rage. It wasn't payback. It was a release. But outside those school walls, the noise only grew louder. 3 more students stepped forward. 2 young black boys. 1 Latina girl. All with stories that mirrored hers. All with the same officer. The same tactics. The same fear. Suddenly, this wasn't just about Maya anymore. It was about a pattern. Samuel Banks kept his distance from the spotlight. He granted just 1 interview. When asked why he didn't go for blood, lawsuits, press conferences, courtroom battles, his answer was calm. Sometimes the truth is loud enough. You don't have to burn down a house to show it's broken. You just open the door and let people see inside. And that was enough. Enough to start conversations at the school board. Enough to get police brass questioning old protocols. Enough to help kids in neighboring towns realize they weren't alone. As for Maya, she stood on a stage in Greensboro weeks later, invited to speak at a student summit. She didn't talk about revenge. She talked about courage, about silence, about the strange ache of being treated like a threat when all you are is a kid trying to learn. And that truth? It echoed louder than any headline ever could. She closed her speech with a sentence that didn't come from a textbook or a quote on the internet. It came from her father. Silence isn't always surrender. Sometimes, it's just the breath before the truth arrives. And though her words had traveled further than she ever expected, one moment still waited, one she didn't rehearse for. It had no stage, no headlines, no applause. Just a quiet room. Just 2 chairs. Just her and him. It happened a week later, tucked inside the district building. No fanfare. No flashing lights. The kind of room that smelled like old carpet and slow decisions. A clock ticked too loud on the wall. Maya sat on one side. Travis Long on the other. He looked smaller now. No badge. No vest. Just a man hunched forward in a wrinkled shirt, staring at the floor like it might open up and swallow him whole. He hadn't wanted to come. That was clear. But the district called it a restorative dialogue. A last step. An optional one. Maya hadn't wanted to come either. But her father asked her one thing. Do you want him to hear of you? Or do you want him to hear from you? So she showed up. The mediator gave the ground rules, then stepped back and let the silence stretch. It was Maya who broke it.
Calm. Clear.
You didn't just embarrass me, she said, locking eyes with him for the first time. You tried to make me small because your son couldn't handle a girl being smarter than him. Travis shifted, rubbed his hands together. Still no eye contact. You followed me. You made me feel like I wasn't safe, like I didn't belong. And all I ever did was study, go to work, and keep to myself. Her voice didn't shake. It didn't rise. It didn't need to. The truth was heavy enough on its own. Travis opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. Then finally, barely above a whisper, he muttered, "That wasn't what I meant to do." Maya blinked. You dumped water on me. In a hallway full of people. What was it you meant to do? He said nothing, just stared at the table like the truth was written there. She wasn't looking for an apology. That ship had sailed. What she really needed was to see it in his face, that he understood, that he knew exactly what he did. Maya stood, gave the mediator a quiet thank you, and walked out. Her words had done enough. Samuel was waiting outside by the car. No stern face. No folder in hand. Just her father, calm, steady, and present in a way that didn't demand attention. She slid into the seat beside him and finally let go of the breath she'd been carrying like armor. He looked at her, one brow slightly raised. How do you feel? Maya didn't grin, but she nodded, slow and certain. Like I didn't have to raise my voice to win. He nodded too. That's what real strength looks like. Maya didn't fade into the background again.
She didn't want to.
She began mentoring girls who felt overlooked, joined a justice group at school, wrote an op-ed for the state's teen column, not for attention, but because she understood now. When you've been silenced, using your voice becomes a duty. And not every girl has someone like Samuel Banks to stand behind her when the world tries to push her down. Not everyone has a stack of evidence, a teacher who pays attention, or a journalist ready to listen. Maya understood that. That's why she used her voice, not for herself anymore, but for the ones who never get the chance. That's where her real power came from. As for Officer Long, he never set foot in Melrose again. His badge? Suspended with no clear path back. He tried to appeal, to twist the narrative, but the very system he once thought would protect him finally started working the way it should.
Slowly.
Quietly. Just like Samuel always said, real change doesn't scream, it holds steady. Because truth, even whispered, has a way of shaking the walls built on lies. So, what's the takeaway? Power without conscience is just noise. But silence, when filled with truth, can move mountains. If anyone has ever tried to shrink you for doing the right thing, don't bend. You don't need to yell. You just need to remain unshaken. And if this story stirred something in you, don't let it stop here. Share it. Sit with it. Ask yourself, would I have spoken like Maya? Stood like Samuel? Because sometimes, the loudest revolution begins with one quiet soul refusing to fade away. If this story stirred something in you, hit that like and subscribe button. Stick with us for more real stories about justice and bravery.